For Hype Plus News, it's your boy K-Rob. In the 1970s, it was the time to be black and proud. Oftentimes, we were misrepresented in the mass media. We had our own magazines and sitcoms, yet we were usually viewed by others through a lens of stigmas and stereotypes. During this time, TV was growing as the people's medium of choice, and preschool-aged children were watching an average of 27 hours of television per week. Although black people had made great strides in politics, business, and entertainment, a black preschooler was the least likely of any demographic to see someone who looked like them on the screen. Black kids were also underserved in education. According to children's media expert Edward Palmer and Shalom N. Fisk, children from low-income families had fewer resources than children from higher-income families to prepare them for school. This was a topic that inspired the work of writer and producer Joanne Gans Cooney. At a dinner party held at her Manhattan apartment in 1966, Joanne met experimental psychologist Lloyd Merced. They conversed about her work in TV production and his work in education as an executive at the Carnegie Corporation. Before the dinner ended, Morissette would propose the question, "Do you think that television could be used to teach young children?" To which Cooney replied, "I don't know, but I'd like to try." This question led to the creation of what would become the longest-running children's show in history, Sesame Street. Their goal for the program was to master the addictive qualities of television and help young children, especially from low-income families, learn and prepare for school. The show's setting would be famously known as 123 Sesame Street, set in the historically black neighborhood of Harlem, New York City. In 1969, the television show that would go on to great screens all around the world declared its target audience to be the 4-year-old black inner-city children. Here's how Sesame Street was originally created for black children. In the mid-1960s, Joanne Cooney was a TV producer tasked with creating a series of documentaries that focused on race, injustice, and the imbalance of opportunity in New York and beyond. A part of the series was a documentary called A Chance at the Beginning, about the program that will become the Head Start, part of Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society campaign, created to combat poverty and racial inequality in 1964. To this day, Head Start provides services for preschool children of low-income families to prepare them for grade school. She later stated in an interview that her work on the film led to her becoming absolutely involved intellectually and spiritually with the civil rights movement and with the educational deficit that poverty created. Initially, preschool education was not as much of a goal for Cooney, as was improving society in general through television, but she later learned because of the socioeconomic disadvantages that left poor children behind, by the time they reached grade school, preschoolers were the best group to do television for, in order to bring about the changes she wanted to see. Around the same time, Lloyd Morissette, who was researching early childhood development, made a discovery about preschool-aged children in his own home. He caught his 3-year-old daughter mesmerized by the test patterns on the TV screen before her Sunday morning cartoon started. She knew all the words to the test advertisement jingles. His daughter's love for TV led to the question that would shape the research that created Sesame Street. If television could successfully teach the words and music to commercials, could the same process be used to teach children in a more educational way? The minds of Morissette and Cooney came together that night at her apartment, led to the creation of Children's Television Workshop, the nonprofit organization that provided the research and funding to produce Sesame Street. The CTW, which became the Sesame Street Workshop in 2000, received a combined grant of $8 million from the Carnegie Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, and the U.S. federal government to create and produce a new children's television show. The organization consisted of a production team that included producers, writers, and directors, as well as a host of experts across the field of education, psychology, child development, social sciences, advertising, and other areas. As the executive director of the CTW, Joanne was often surrounded by a team of black advisors with an awareness of the various issues that were important to inner-city black people. At the head of those advisors was psychiatrist and Harvard professor Chester Pierce. He helped design what he called the show's hidden curriculum to build up self-worth of black children through positive black images. A professor of early childhood education, Pierce believed that the television sent demeaning messages that influenced the mental health of young, impressionable black children. He was determined to use the very technology that harmed us as a radical tool of intervention and therapy. As founding president of the Black Psychiatrists of America, he told his colleagues in 1970, "Many of you know that for years I've been convinced that our ultimate enemies are the education system and the mass media. We must offer what fractions of truth we can to make an education and mass media serve rather to oppress the black people of this country, to challenge the marginalization of black children routinely saw on screens." Chester Pierce aimed to give viewers a vision of an integrated society where everyone was a friend and treated with respect. With its multi-ethnic cast, Sesame Street, thus known for teaching children community and kindness, just as much as it was taught their ABCs. From its first episode, Sesame Street was designed to portray underserved communities in a positive light. John Stone, a writer, producer, and director on the show, came up with the idea of the show to be set in the New York brownstone. In the book Street Gang, written by Michael Davis, Stone said, "For a preschool child in Harlem, the street is where the action is. Our set had to be inner city streets, and more particularly, it had to be a brownstone, so the cast and kids could stoop in the age-old New York tradition." He brought on set designer Charles Rosen, who took inspiration from different neighborhoods in Harlem, to create the lively street known as 123 Sesame. In her doctoral dissertation, Loretta Long, educator and actress who played the leading female character, Susan Robinson, on the show referred to the set design as part of Pearson's hidden curriculum, noting that locating the show in the inner city neighborhood with old brownstones and lots of trash cans will help the inner city child relate more to us as neighbors. Long played the show's main maternal figure, alongside Matt Robinson, who played Gordon Robinson, her husband. Robinson remained a fixture on the show from its pilot episode in 1969 until 2016. This was Sesame Street's first example of positive Black authoritative figures, but they wouldn't be the last. They led a cast of predominantly Black performers and children, as well as Muppet characters created by Jim Henson. Although Henson has stated, the only kids who can identify along racial lines with the Muppets have to be either green or orange. Producers cleared any confusion of whether the Muppets had a racial identity during the first season of the show. He was purple and named Roosevelt, a spunky, smart kid who attended Roosevelt Franklin Elementary School. In their teachers absent, Roosevelt would give his rowdy but good-natured class lessons on subjects like here and there, leaving other people's belongings alone, family, and pride. Voiced by Matt Robinson, Roosevelt often spoke in rhyme and scat in what some would call Black English.
Everybody talk loud. We're all talking loud. Everybody talk soft. We're all talking soft. Now you know the difference between loud and soft. Don't tell me I can't teach.
After 3 seasons, the role of Roosevelt was phased out due to criticism from Black viewers and CTW members. They felt Roosevelt presented a negative stereotype of Black people as well as his noisy class. However, Loretta Long defended the character in her dissertation, stating that the way he spoke was to make him more believable to their target audience. The most important thing about Roosevelt, she added, is that he always knows the correct answer, whether he talks in standard or non-standard English. Criticisms of other characters and themes of the show followed throughout the early 70s. Although the character of Gordon was praised for being a positive male role model, women of the feminist movement did not agree with the portrayal of Susan as only a housewife. In response, there was an episode of Sesame Street that featured Susan getting a job as a nurse and owning her own immunization clinic. Sesame Street was known for its inclusivity and multicultural cast. However, the Latin community felt slighted by their representation in the show. Hispanic activists said that the show's bilingual aspect was patronizing and of poor quality. The CTW responded to these critics by hiring Hispanic actors, production staff, and researchers. By the mid-70s, it was reported that the show included films about Mexican holidays, food, and cartoons that taught Spanish words. The criticism only further proved that viewers understood the goal of Sesame Street was to educate and give positive representation to underprivileged children, and no one wanted to be left out or misrepresented. But not everyone was fond of Sesame Street's inclusive themes. A Mississippi State Commission voted in 1970 not to air the show on their new public TV network because its members felt that the Mississippi was not ready for a show with an integrated cast. Parents successfully petitioned the station to bring it back and invited the show's cast to visit Jackson, Mississippi when the show came to town. The local police showed up in riot gear. Describing the visit in 1988, interview Loretta Long recalled, "White little kids were reached out to kiss me or Gordon. The other Black characters, and you could see their mothers were uneasy, but they loosened up because how can you hate someone who makes your child so happy?" Everyone involved in Sesame Workshop worked tirelessly to ensure that all children learned and grew as a result of their programming. As time went on, the cast of Sesame Street became even more diverse, to include disabled, ethnically diverse Muppets with natural hair, an HIV-positive Muppet, and adopted, and more. In its earliest days, Sesame Street enlisted the biggest names in Black culture to appear as guests on the show. If there were any question whether or not Sesame Street was for Black kids, it was clear when Nina Simone sat on the stoop with 4 Black children and sang, "To be young, gifted, and Black." Other celebrity guests included James Earl Jones, Shirley Chisholm, Jackie Robinson, just to name a few. And in 2014, Academy Award-winning actress Lupita Nyong'o celebrated the beauty of Black skin alongside Elmo. As of 2021, Sesame Street has earned 205 Emmy Awards, 11 Grammys, the highest of any children's television show. The show opened the doors for other preschool educational shows, like the fan favorite Gracie's Corner, that put kids' nursery rhymes to a hip-hop beat. Thanks to Sesame Street, children all over the world saw themselves, where before they saw who society said they were. Gordon, Susie, Big Bird, and all the other friends showed them who they could be. They could be teachers, nurses, singers, politicians, athletes, whatever they dreamed. Children who were taught to feel less than could watch this show and feel intelligent and feel seen. Thanks to Big Bird and Friends, the revolution was televised and it was located on 123 Sesame Street. Stay up to date with the latest news and comedy, music, sports by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Follow Comedy Hype across all of our social media platforms and look out for our new original content on our new streaming service. For Hype Plus, this has been your boy K-Rob.